where else would they go?
Yeah, where else would they go?
They're not going to Alderaan.
Yeah. Too soon, Darren. Too soon.
Oh, it's you.
Hello there. I'm Darren.
And I'm Dougie.
And we're looking at the real sequels. The series of events that happened after Episode 6 in the books, novels, and sometimes comics in the expanded universe. We're starting with Heir to the Empire, and today we're on to Chapter 15 and 16.
Yes, indeed. So, Chapter 15 starts with the three ships, the Millennium Falcon, the Lady Luck, and Luke in his X-Wing, travelling out from Niklon under the protection of a shield ship. So yeah, they make it out to the Athiga system. I've just given up trying to pronounce these correctly at this point. So the whole journey out of Niklon, Han is expecting them to be attacked by something. He's really on edge, but it's completely uneventful. They make it out of the system fine, they don't get attacked or anything. And so Leia and Chewie transfer over to the Lady Luck from the Falcon. Lando makes his way over from the Lady Luck to the Falcon, and then the Lady Luck with Leia and Chewie goes to hyperspace. And after that, Luke in his X-Wing, he jumps off to hyperspace after they're safely away. And that leaves Lando and Han in the Millennium Falcon talking about what are we going to do. And Lando basically suggests that, well, first of all, they send a message using C3PO under the guise of Leia to send a message to the New Republic to make it look like Leia's still on the Falcon. Then they should probably go to a couple more systems and send a couple more messages, again, keeping up the appearances that Leia is still on the Falcon. And then Lando suggests that they go see Talon Guard, because the New Republic still needs cargo ships. None of the smugglers that Han was contacting have got back to him about doing legitimate work for the New Republic. They still might need a slicer at some point in the future. You know, Leia is safe at the minute, but something could happen and her secret might still get out and they might still need a slicer, so it'll be good to get that ball rolling now. And as well as that, Lando suggests that Card might even know something about this Imperial commander that is running circles around the New Republic fleets at the minute. So with all that, Lando and Han head off to start on that wee side quest. And then we cut to Pelion entering Thrawn's private command chamber. And Pelion tells Thrawn that the probes at the Athiga system have picked up the ships leaving Niklon, and Pelion plays back the recording and it shows the Lady Luck linking to the Millennium Falcon. And so Thrawn is watching very intently this recording, and once it finishes he says, yes, 4 minutes and 53 seconds. Very good. And so Thrawn just tells Pelion, it's not even a question, he just tells Pelion, 3 people have transferred between these ships one way or the other. And Pelion's sitting thinking to himself, where'd he pull that from, So after Thrawn says this, Pelion's like, well, we definitely know that Leia is still on the Falcon because after the Lady Luck left, Princess Leia sent out a message to the New Republic, so she's clearly still on the Falcon. And Thrawn immediately dismisses this. He's like, no, it's probably recording. It's maybe like a reprogrammed droid that they're using as a decoy because this is a bit too obvious. Send out a message just as the other ship has left.
And see, this is what I love about Thrawn. This is the thing he's all about. It's what makes him dangerous. It's not the Star Destroyers. It's not the ships. It is how sharp his wit is, and just to be able to immediately suss out a plan and make that decision that 100% this is it, I'm so certain, and having the facts of however long it was and knowing exactly that's how long it would take to get a few people across and why would they do that, and then why would they immediately send a message to the New Republic. It just all makes sense. Brilliant.
Yeah, exactly, because Pelion's skeptical. He's like, why would you possibly think that? And Thrawn then goes on to explain. So yeah, he's saying, well, on Niklon, Lando would have boarded his own ship. Han, Leia and Chewie would have boarded the Millennium Falcon to avoid raising any suspicion while on Niklon. So there was 3 people on the Falcon, 1 person on the Lady Luck when they left, and then they met up in the Athica system. We know that they linked for 4 minutes 53 seconds, and Thrawn says that's enough time for 3 people to go between the ships in either direction. Thrawn says it's very unlikely that there's any droids on the ships because Han Solo characteristically doesn't really like droids, and he doesn't normally let them travel on a ship. C3PO and R2 are basically the exceptions. So the next point that Thrawn makes is that based on Han and Lando's personality profiles, they would be very reluctant to leave either of their ships in control of a droid or some sort of computer, so we're reasonably certain that at least one person ends up on the Lady Luck and the Millennium Falcon. So taking all this kind of information into consideration, there's basically 2 possibilities. Either Han and Leia are on the Lady Luck, or Leia and Chewbacca are on the Lady Luck. And so Thrawn says that of those 2 options, it's probably Leia and Chewbacca, because if Han and Leia move to the Lady Luck, it would serve no advantage, because the Millennium Falcon is faster and better armed and a better ship in general, so it would make the most sense for them just to stay on the Falcon if they're going to do that. So then the most likely option is that Leia and Chewbacca are on the Lady Luck, and because that's the most likely outcome, Thrawn also knows exactly where the Lady Luck is going, because...
Where else would they go?
Yeah, where else would they go?
They're not going to Alderaan.
Yeah. Too soon, Darren. Too soon. So, Thrawn tells Pelion to dispatch the Nogri to Kashyyyk in search of Leia. So the final sort of bit of this chapter 15 is Thrawn giving instructions to Pelion about the trap they're going to set for Luke. So basically, Thrawn wants Pelion to get an interdictor cruiser and a disposable freight ship. And basically, they want to set up the trap so that it looks like the Imperials were inspecting this freighter and they just happened to catch Luke. And that way, when they capture Luke, it means that they still have the option of giving Luke over to Kabath later on. And even from Luke's perspective, it'll seem like he just got unlucky and stumbled across an Imperial inspection and got captured. So we start chapter 16 with Luke being dragged out of hibernation sleep, and he can sense it's sooner than it really should have been. And basically, he is startled to full alertness because he sees an Imperial Star Destroyer and an interdictor cruiser, and there's a freighter ship that's on fire. Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, you know? Mm-hmm. So he immediately takes evasive maneuvers, and he starts trying to race for the edge of the mass shadow that the interdictor cruiser is projecting. And he's being healed pretty much immediately by the Star Destroyer, and it's the Chimera. So Luke, he's like flying away, he's trying to keep the freighter between him and the Star Destroyer so that the Star Destroyer can't get a lock on his X-Wing. And he's like turned his shields off to give extra power to the engines, and he's just about to get to the edge when he gets slammed into his restraints because he's got caught in the tractor beam by the Star Destroyer. And so he's now kind of like going in a wide arc, basically orbiting the Star Destroyer now because they've got a single tractor beam on him, and he's only got like a few seconds before they'll latch another tractor beam onto him and they'll start dragging him in. So Luke, he's like,
R2, we're going to try something tricky. Reverse trigger the accelerator compensator.
Yeah.
Full power bypass the cutoffs.
What techno
what a crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good. It's good. You got to throw some techno babble in there. You know, get the jargon in.
Yeah. So basically, Luke says, right, now R2, and R2 slams on this acceleration compensator. The X-Wing comes to a dead stop in space, and as that happens, Luke fires 2 proton torpedoes at the same moment, and basically his hope is that the targeting computer that's tracking his X-Wing will track the proton torpedoes instead, and they'll lock onto the torpedoes instead of his ship and break the connection. As he does it, he hears like a mad screech, and he's just like, I don't even have time to worry about what that is, I just need to get out of here. So he guns it for the edge of the mass shadow, gets over the line, and just jumps to light speed. So this chapter cuts to Thrawn and Pelion. They're on the bridge of the Chimera, and they're looking out the viewport, and Thrawn is just staring at that point in space where the X-Wing was before it jumped to light speed. And Pelion's crapping himself, you know. He needs to be wearing his brown pants. And so, without a word, Thrawn turns, walks down the bridge, and goes down into the pit crew where all the operators and technicians and stuff are. And Pelian's just waiting for the outburst.
Yeah, he's used to these like OTT Imperials that just explode and everyone's dead.
Yeah.
Darth Vader's temper tantrums.
Yeah. So Pelian follows Thrawn, and Thrawn goes up to the tractor beam operator, and it's a guy called Chris Peterson.
Yeah.
And Thrawn's like, "Are you the tractor beam operator that was operating the starboard tractor beam just now?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." And it's kind of weird because the guy's given a bit of attitude to Thrawn.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of like, "Yeah, it was my job, but it wasn't my fault, you know?"
See, this throws it back, I think, to the chapter 1 where we see how shiny these guys are. And that's the thing. Pelian's crapping himself because he's used to a Darth Vader blowout. This guy isn't crapping himself because he's just new. He's no idea what to expect.
Absolutely. And so this tractor beam operator is like, "Yeah, it wasn't my fault." And Thrawn says, "Well, explain yourself. How was it not your fault?" And Chris says, "Well, I wasn't trained for this kind of situation. The targeting computer lost the lock, but it immediately regained the lock. And I had no way of knowing that it had locked onto something else until the 2 proton torpedoes had slammed into the side of the Star Destroyer." And so Thrawn's like, "Who trained you? Who's your officer?" And Chris looks over at Ensign,
Ensign Colclasure.
Yeah, the ensign, he's standing like straight backed, blood draining from his face because he's clearly seen Vader, or he's at least heard of something.
Yeah, he's an officer, he's had a bit of experience, and he is crapping it. And this guy has just tried to drop him in it.
Yeah. So Thrawn asks the ensign, "Did this training include any scenarios that were similar to this situation that we just encountered?" And the ensign, to his credit, is like, "I don't really remember, but I do know that the standard training module includes scenarios about losing your targeting lock and then confirming your re-establishment of a lock." So at this point, Thrawn calls forward Rook, and Pelian, he didn't even realise that Rook was following them, which I think is just a nice wee tidbit towards the Noghri and just how stealthy they can be when they want to be.
Yeah.
And so Rook comes up beside Thrawn, and Thrawn asks the ensign if he knows the difference between an error and a mistake. And at this, the whole bridge is like deathly still. Everyone is on the edge of their seat, just like, what is going to happen here? And the ensign, he peels even further, like the blood just completely drains from her face, and he's like, "No." And Thrawn says, "Anyone can make an error, ensign, but that error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it." And then Thrawn, almost like lazily, raises a finger and points at
Chris,
the tractor beam operator.
Caution. This next scene could get pretty graphic.
And Rook moves so fast that Pelian can't even see what he did, and Chris doesn't even have time to scream. Then Thrawn, continuing to talk to the ensign, says, "The error, ensign, has now been corrected. You may begin training a replacement." And just completely oblivious to the entire tension on the bridge, Thrawn turns around and starts talking to Pelian about getting the vector for the lightspeed jump for Luke's X-Wing, and they just start walking off. And it's just like completely nonchalant, back to business as if nothing happened. And Thrawn explains to Pelian that little trick that Luke pulled, the reversing of the acceleration compensator. It has the nasty side effect of doing severe damage to the hyperdrive. So Thrawn thinks that Luke probably won't make it further than a light year away, and once he comes out of hyperspace, he'll be helpless. So Thrawn tells Pelian to put out a message to the local smuggling lords offering a bounty for the return of Luke Skywalker, basically because they don't have time to go searching along a hyperspace route in search for the X-Wing. The preparations for the attack on Sluis Van are the highest priority right now. And so at the end of the chapter, Pelian is like, "Well, if you knew it would be quite easy to find Skywalker, then why'd you do that?" And Thrawn ends the chapter by saying, "We cannot afford the luxury of men whose minds are so limited they cannot adapt to unexpected situations."
Oh, awesome. What an awesome chapter, and like just kind of outlines Thrawn so well. He's not angry, he's just disappointed. His danger, again, is just his wit. His mind is the most dangerous tool that he has, and he will use it. And later on, whenever we see the way he reacts with his staff, and it's completely different to the way Vader would react, it would just be immediately someone would be killed, and there's no reason why. But the way that he's actually looking for the weak links in his chain, and he's finding them, and he's taking them out. It's not cruel, it's brutal, but it's a different type of brutality than what we've actually been used to, I think, with the way the Empire is shown in on screen.
Yeah, it's just completely cold, pragmatic, logical reasoning.
Well, that's about all we got time for this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you liked what you heard. And you can follow us on Twitter or Reddit.
Yeah, and if you didn't like what you heard, then...
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Awesome. Brr.
Bye.